Oh, just so you know, you've been warned. All right, so all of you have interacted with me at least by email. Raina is currently taking the course that I'll tell you guys a little bit more about. So Raina is a little bit more familiar with me, although it's an online course, so we haven't spent too much time personally interacting. So we're going to go through the slides, and I actually probably should talk a little bit about social work since we're recording it, right? That makes sense. So it's not going to be as short as I thought it was, guys. Sorry about that. But please feel free to stop and ask questions along the way. Raina, you're able to do chat, or I have you unmuted. You can just pop in and ask questions. All right? We'll be as professional but informal as possible. Good. All right. So I like to start out by talking about, like, what are the goals of the program? What are our intentions of having this AmeriCorps program? But I want to start by letting you know we are in the 5th year of our grant cycle. So the first 3 years of the grant were spent collecting data on the My Plan intervention that I'll tell you just a little bit more about as we walk through. The 4th year, which was this year, technically this year we're in right now, was intended to address these goals. And so these are going to be our goals for the next couple of years as well. The grant cycles are 3 years. So we're going into year 5, and they'll stay the same as year 4. And those are addressing domestic violence in the community by placing advocates in every nonprofit across the state. Of course, we're not quite there yet, but that's a goal, right? We're working towards it. And so the way that we do that is by recruiting AmeriCorps members or students to become AmeriCorps members so that we can help to place you in community organizations that may or may not specifically address domestic violence. So for example, we would place some interns in the domestic violence shelters, but we also would place some interns in other community organizations like hospitals, police departments, crisis response units, schools, other places outside of DV shelter, so that you all as members can help to educate the community and also to intervene with people who might be experiencing domestic violence and who aren't accessing the shelter system. So what we know is that the majority of people that are experiencing domestic violence don't end up in the shelter system. And so our thoughts here in the School of Social Work and the Office of Gender-Based Violence is that we want to reach all of those people that aren't being reached. And so the way that we decided to do this was by onboarding AmeriCorps members and training you to be victim advocates. We also want to educate the community about healthy relationships and how we can hopefully avoid domestic violence in the future, in future generations. We also want our members that are working in the shelters or are working with domestic violence survivors to be able to provide what we call intense advocacy. So intense advocacy goes beyond what is typically provided to domestic violence survivors. And intense advocacy is actually operationalized as 10 sessions with a client, with a domestic violence survivor. So in most cases, survivors get 2 to 3 sessions with an advocate. And that could be many things. It could just be just sitting down to talk. It could be getting referrals. It could be maybe the advocate accompanies them to court or accompanies them to other social service providers or to therapy intake, something like that. What we want to do, because the research shows it to be most effective, is to give more to those survivors. And so our members that are working in the shelter system or working in community outreach organizations that deal with DV, we expect that you all will go above and beyond that and provide a little bit more to those clients so that we can hopefully make the greatest impact possible. We also want to increase accessibility to safety planning through promoting the My Plan app in as many nonprofits as possible. And so we train you all in the My Plan app. I go out into the community along with one of the AmeriCorps Vistas, and we have trained almost 300 people in the community now on how to use the My Plan app. So that they can intervene anywhere with their friends, their family, if they're at their work, at their internship at school, anybody that might be experiencing domestic violence, or if you have a friend or family member that you think is experiencing domestic violence, this app is appropriate for. And so we want as many people to know about it as possible. So those are our goals. They were our goals this year, and they're going to be our goals moving forward. Okay, Jasmine, I'm going to mute you just because there's a little bit of wind noise, but certainly, well, actually, no, because you won't be able to tell me you need me. Okay, I'm gonna not mute you, but you maybe if you mute your phone and then you unmute yourself when you need to talk. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We also have a new participant,
Okay.
Mario Vada.
Hi, Mario. Welcome. We're just getting started. I do need to let you know that we are recording this session for people who might need to watch it after hours. Do you give us consent to do that?
Just write it in the chat, that's fine.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mario. And are you a social work major, Mario? If you could just chat back, that'd be great. Okay. So moving along, this slide here is to tell you kind of what we expect of you. First is that we expect that you commit to a minimum of 300 hours for your term of service. So those of you that aren't social work majors, 300 hours is the typical term of service that people who don't have to do internships for their degree choose to do. However,
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Mario. So however, 450 hours is kind of the recommended amount of time. And so that's not just for our other community members. So you all could choose to do 450 hours. That means a little bit more stipend money, and it means a little bit more scholarship money. 450 hours is what our social work students do commit to. And that's because they're required for their degree to do 480. And so that 450 fits right within that. And so that's why it's a little bit different. So I'm not going to like require non-social work majors to do 450, but it's an option. It's not off the table if you wanted to do it. 675 is for our master's level social work students, or we could take other, other disciplines that are graduate students that are interested in doing research with a faculty member in addition to their service term. So you might spend, say, 450 hours at an internship site, but then over the course of the semester, you would do an additional, comes to about 10 hours a week, where you're working with a faculty member doing research assistant types of work. So that could be collecting data, it could be doing literature reviews, it could be putting together bibliographies, whatever research assistants generally do for the faculty member that they're assigned to. Site approval is something that we have to do, and that's primarily my job, but it does require your help. So we have a list of sites that we already have agreements with. We have a list of sites that we have agreements with for the School of Social Work. We have a list of sites that we have an agreement with that are not with the School of Social Work, but take AmeriCorps members. And then you have the option of choosing another site not on any of those lists, and then bringing it to me so that then we can talk about what next steps we can take to onboard. In general, most sites are very excited to be able to not only partner with ASU, but also to know that you're going to be providing them with a free service, some free volunteer work or membership, and that you are going to get something out of it. We're going to be paying you. We're going to be giving you scholarship. So that to be said, I think maybe only one or two places I've ever approached have said they can't do it. So if you find a site that's not on the list that I provide you, please don't see that as not an option. Please talk to me about it. One of my goals is to onboard new sites. So it's totally fine, and that helps me out, okay? You are required to complete a comprehensive background check. So this is where it gets a little confusing for students. For most of you, you will need to have a fingerprint clearance card anyway, a DPS fingerprint clearance card. You may have already had to have it for your job, or you may have already had to have it for other volunteer work that you've done. Most of our sites require that you have it. Most of our Arizona nonprofits want to see that DPS card. It's also good for 8 years. So even after you graduate and you go out into the field and do work, you need this card. So it's a benefit. That's something that you have to pay for on your own, is that DPS clearance card. But AmeriCorps requires an additional background check. That is something we cover as a program. So that additional background check is going to be being fingerprinted again, unfortunately. Again, we'll pay for it. But then also filling out in a database that we set you up in all of your information so that we can run the FBI check that now the National Service Commission is requiring of students, of AmeriCorps students. So that's something we will all sit down together in one big day and an orientation and all do together. But if you're unable to come to that, that's something that you and I need to schedule a time to spend about 20, 30 minutes walking through together. So that's going to be prior to you starting your first day. We need to have your background checks done, your DPS clearance card, as well as the ones that are required by AmeriCorps. Questions about that? Okay. All right, so the other requirement is that you stay within AmeriCorps standards and that you're in compliance with the prohibited activities. And I'm going to go over those on the next slide. You will need to verify as a domestic violence advocate through taking the foundation course, which is either SWG 545 or SWU 416. So coming up this fall, there are two options. There's an online option, and there's also an on-ground option. The on-ground course is going to be here at the downtown campus on Monday evenings. I will be teaching that course. The online course will be a course just like any other online course, available depending upon what your schedule is and what the due dates are for your class. And that one, I believe Dr. Messing is going to be teaching this semester. You also need to be reporting your time using our timekeeping system called the Encore timekeeping system. So this, for you, Mario, because you're a social work major, you will be doing your timekeeping in two different places. So the School of Social Work will require you to do your weekly supervision log. That still is a requirement. That's where you're going to document your hours you did for the week, as well as your activities you did for the week, questions you might have for your field instructor, how this all applies to your education. That is still required. For everybody else, including Mario, you will also be entering your time into the Encore database. So I set you up with a profile in the database. I give you your login and password. And then each week you go in and you enter your time and you break it out according to what kind of domestic violence activities you did, what trainings you might have taken, or if you just did general service. And we consider general service to be everything else that you're doing at internship that is not necessarily DV related. We also ask that you wear AmeriCorps gear. So I'm not super picky about it, but we do ask that you wear it as often as possible. We will provide you with t-shirts, AmeriCorps t-shirts, and hopefully the lanyards too. And then when we have different events that come up, when you attend those, we generally order special shirts for those too, so you can end up at the end of the year with a few shirts, the end of the semester, I should say. We ask that you participate in the National Day of Service. So every year on September 11th, all AmeriCorps members across the United States participate in a National Day of Service. Whatever activity their particular program puts together and requires of them is what they participate in. This past year we ended up doing it on the 12th of September instead of the 11th, but we had a big conference on domestic violence over at ASU West. And so our members attended that and they got to count that as their National Day of Service. We also do another National Day of Service on Martin Luther King Day. And this year that was painting the mural that's out in Maryvale that you may have seen the advertisements about. But that was our Survivor Link program that funded at least half of that. And so our members went out and helped to paint the mural with the artist on Martin Luther King Day. And then we had a big unveiling on March 31st. Then you are required at the end of your hours to do an exit interview in the system. So it's like 5 to 10 minute little it asks you how your service went. Do you want them to contact you? Do you want to be on the alumni list? Would you like to serve again? That kind of stuff. So that is, in a nutshell, the requirements that you might have. So let's talk about these prohibited activities. You're going to take your time and you're going to read over these yourself, but I'm going to tell you that these generally fall into 3 different categories. The first one being political. So while you're on the AmeriCorps clock, while you're in your internship role, while you're wearing your AmeriCorps gear, you are agreeing to not participate in political activities that might be petitioning, picketing, protesting, any of those things that might affiliate yourself with a certain political party or a certain political ideology. You also cannot, interestingly enough, register people to vote. So those are things that cannot happen while you're on internship. Now remember, these are things that you can do outside of that, but shouldn't be part of your service, and you can't identify yourself as an AmeriCorps member when you're participating in those things, okay? The other category is religion. So you cannot be proselytizing, you cannot be praying with people, and you shouldn't be encouraging people to lean in a certain direction or towards a certain religious or spiritual ideology. Certainly if people are already practicing that and you are encouraging them to use their own natural systems and supports, that's perfectly appropriate. But you shouldn't be saying, hey, go talk to your priest about that, right? Or have you thought about praying about that? Or in the Bible it says, okay? So you should not be engaging in religious activity while you are wearing your AmeriCorps gear. The third very specific prohibited activity is anything having to do with abortion. So you cannot educate people about abortion, make referral for abortion, or facilitate or provide abortion. So the reason being, abortion is both political and religious in nature, and so we avoid that very specifically, all right? Any questions about the prohibited activities? Oh, this is a good time for me to also mention now your social media accounts. So when you join AmeriCorps, I know lots of us, including myself, use our social media accounts to talk about our own personal beliefs, whether that's religious or political or any of those other things. And that's perfectly appropriate. What we do ask that you do, though, is if that's the place that you talk about your personal beliefs, like I do on mine, you don't indicate that you're an AmeriCorps member, or you don't post pictures of yourself in your AmeriCorps gear. So if you wanted to do that, then you could maybe create a separate account that's where you can share with your family, your friends, your grandma, and how proud you are of all the things you're doing as an AmeriCorps member. But that if you have some real strong kind of beliefs and things that you talk about on your social media, that you just remember to separate those out from your AmeriCorps service, okay? For some people, it might be fine. They just keep a vote together because that's just, who they are and how they are. But there's no judgment on that. Just remember that that's what we're asking you to do. Okay. So this part is also confusing. Actually, all of this is confusing. I say that about every single slide, but all of this is confusing. But let me say to you, this part is particularly confusing for some students. So we have the DV certificate that's available to you. This is an academic certificate. This is something that's conferred upon graduation if you apply and complete these requirements. That says to everyone who reads your resume that you have studied intensely about the issue of domestic violence, you're knowledgeable about it, you're skilled, okay? That's the DV certificate. This is different than the victim advocate certificate that you will get once you complete the course. So you take the one course, which is SWG 545 or SWU 416. At the end of that course, you will receive a certificate that then allows you to write on your resume that you are certified as a victim advocate in the state of Arizona through the coalition, okay? That is what I like for you to think of as more a professional certificate. That's a certificate that shows that you're trained in a specific type of work, victim advocacy. Different than the domestic violence academic certificate, which says that you studied this, okay? So this diagram here has the 3 circles. The DV certificate, that's the academic certificate, is on the right. The course is in the middle. Then on the left, we have AmeriCorps. The things that AmeriCorps requires you to do, the things that DV certificate required to do, are different things, but where they overlap is with that course. So that's why we think that it makes perfect sense for people that are doing one to consider doing all of it, because that's a trifecta, right? You can say, I was an AmeriCorps member, I also am certified as a victim advocate, and I have an academic certificate in domestic violence. So there's this opportunity to get all three of these things under your belt and on your resume. Or you can choose to just do one of those things. You can do AmeriCorps and not do the DV certificate. You can do the DV certificate and not do AmeriCorps, okay? Things to know about your AmeriCorps. If you're already a full-time ASU employee or already a full-time federal employee, you cannot join AmeriCorps because the way the money works, it would be like you double dipping, okay? Now, if you're already working for ASU and you're doing like some student worker work, or if you are receiving financial aid through your FAFSA, through Pell Grant, that's all good, that's okay. That's allowable, all right? You just can't be getting money from certain places and then also get it from the federal government because it's all coming from the same stream. So let's go back to the certificate. In order to get the academic certificate, you would be doing an internship, which is for social work majors, it's 6 credits. For those of you that are not social work majors, we will help to verify your internship when you apply for the certificate. You would be taking the DV service course, which is the 545 or the 416, and then you would need to take an additional 6 credits in electives that are related to gender-based violence, domestic violence, sexual violence, trauma, that kind of thing. You would want to talk to your academic advisor as soon as possible and let them know that this is something you're interested in so they can help to look at your program of study and see how you might fit this in. I also included on this slideshow, which will be emailed out to you, the links so that you can go to the undergraduate link or the graduate link and take a look and see what's on the webpage as far as what's required for the certificate, okay?
We do have a new participant, and I've asked in the chat to let the participant know that we're recording and asking if that's okay and which means our program. So I have not heard back.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, so this slide here is an interesting flow chart that if you spend some time looking at it, it can be useful. At first glance, it seems like a lot of information and like maybe somebody has like laid out the architecture for their plumbing system. But essentially, it's meant to show you that on the first line here, these are the student or your responsibility for signing up for AmeriCorps Survivor Link program. The second line is the academic unit's responsibility. So like your academic advisor, maybe your field specialist, which would be me if you're in the School of Social Work. The AmeriCorps staff right now is just me too, so that's my responsibility too. And then if you were interested in getting the domestic violence academic certificate, remember, not the professional certificate, the academic certificate, you would also then go down to this 4th line on the diagram and go from there. Someone has their, can we mute?
Is that better?
Yeah, thank you. All right. Moving along. So within the School of Social Work, we have the Office of Gender-Based Violence, which is Dr. Jill Messing's office, that there are several of us that work under this office. This is the office that has the AmeriCorps grant, and we have some goals. These goals are, in addition to what I was talking about as far as like what are our program goals, these are what are kind of our concrete goals to get to that. One is that I would like to enroll 60 student members for fall. 50 of those to hopefully be social work students, but hey, it just benefits if we can get the 450. So even if you're not a social work major, if you're willing to do 450, that helps quite a bit. Overall, in a service year, I would need 95 members. So if in fall we got over half of those, that would be great. People would have a lot of time to finish their hours. We want 5 programs to adopt the My Plan safety planning tool as their organization policy. So some of these new programs that we're going into, I go in and I train them and their staff and anyone else really in the community that wants to join on how to use the My Plan safety planning tool. We would hope that at least 5 of those organizations would say, we like this so much, we want this to be our go-to safety planning tool. That's just a nice added benefit. We'd like to see full participation in the service day, and actually for fall, remember that's going to be 9/11, not Martin Luther King. But at least if you could attend one, if not both of those, that we would like full participation from all our members. If you're unable to attend either of those, we do allow for you to develop your own kind of service day or service activity at your specific site. You would just need them to let me know what you did. So for instance, at one site, they decided to collect women's hygiene products. And so they did like a little drive, and then they passed them out to the women at the residential treatment program that they worked at. Somebody else did a Facebook drive where they gathered funds and then were able to buy shampoos and stuff for a men's shelter. So you can do your own service project. Oh, one other place actually did a food drive too, where they just collected canned goods and then took it over to St. Mary's Food Bank. So you can design your own little project if you're unable to attend our big project. We also would like to enroll and have graduate a successful cadre of students that are going to get the academic certificate. So those are kind of the means to the end. These are the goals that'll help me get to those larger programmatic goals of placing a victim advocate in every nonprofit across Arizona, or in making sure that as many women as possible get the intensive advocacy. Questions about any of that? All right, so many of you may have already heard of AmeriCorps Vistas. That is different than what I'm talking to you about. So I'm talking to you about AmeriCorps membership. AmeriCorps Vistas are more like Peace Corps members, where they're giving a whole year of their life to people in poverty. Their whole goal of that program is to eradicate poverty through capacity building. So through grant writing, through developing new programs, through recruiting volunteers to staff and fund a program. So if you think about a soup kitchen as the model, Vistas are the people that would go out into the community and collect the cans of soup, would locate where they could have a soup kitchen, they would get volunteers involved that could help. You as members would be actually running the soup kitchen. You would be in there serving the soup, meeting with the people, helping them to find resources. So that's the difference between a Vista and a member. And again, remember, Vistas are full-time. They're 365 days in this. There's no like off-clock, on-clock kind of stuff, okay? So that's the difference. So while they're under the same umbrella and they all are called AmeriCorps, they're 2 different distinct programs. Now here in our Office of Gender-Based Violence, we have 8 to 12 Vistas at any given time. So you do interact with them and you do get to see what they do, and oftentimes they come out to the sites you're working at because they're helping to collect data on research projects, but they're still doing a different type of service than you all. All right, so big question that comes up is, where can I do my service? Where can I intern? So there's a couple more that I've gotten in the last few weeks that I need to add on to this slide, but in general, this is a fairly updated slide. So if you're a social work student, these sites on the left are really great sites because they already have an MSW on site that can provide your field instruction. The sites on the right are great sites for our non-social work students because they don't necessarily have an MSW, but they've been working with us, they understand our goals, they're really interested in getting more members. Now, if you're a non-social work major, you can choose from any of these. You get the whole package. Social work students, though, you're kind of limited to those sites that have an MSW on site, whether it's a brand new one that we create a new student placement agreement with, or whether it's one that's already identified, okay? In all instances, I need to be clued into where you're gonna be serving and also be able to ensure that we get an MOU signed for the upcoming service year. This is a good time for me to tell you about the service year. So some of you might be joining because you wanted to do some summer service. That's great. We'll talk about that separately. What I'm recruiting right now actively for is for fall. So starting September 1st. Our service years run from September 1 to August 31. So you have that whole time to get your hours in, okay? You can do it in a few months, or you could take that whole year to do it. But it has to be done by the time that grant cycle or that service year is up. So school starts a little bit before that, right? So you may be already at your site, you might be doing things. You're not going to be counting, though, your hours until September 1st or until your background check clears, whichever comes first, all right? No, whichever comes last, sorry, whichever comes last. So if we wait too long to turn in your paperwork and get all your stuff done, and you can't start till September 15th, I can't count your hours before that, okay? So you guys are in a great place that you're starting now, and that's why I start recruiting now, because you could have everything done and then just know that, boom, right away, you're good to go, all right? Elizabeth, you've sat in a million of these. Have I forgotten anything?
The only thing is the ASU employee again.
The ASU employee, I'll reiterate that. I did mention it, but I'll say it again. That ASU employees, if you're a full-time employee, you're not eligible for to do the AmeriCorps, okay? If you are a student worker, or if you're a part-time, or you've been one before, it's totally fine.
You can talk about child welfare too.
So the child welfare, we're still hashing that out.
Okay.
If you're a child welfare student, like you're in the 4E grant, you need to let me know that, because there's some things that we need to look into a little further. So for those of you that aren't social work majors, just so you know, DCS here in Arizona pays for some students to go and get their graduate degrees, or even part of their undergrad, and then they go work for them afterwards. But that funding may come from the same place as AmeriCorps, so we're still hashing that out. That's what that question is about. So
if you're watching the recording,
right, good. So if you're watching the recording later, talk to me about that and let me know right away. Okay. All right. All right, so we talked earlier about the fact that you would be entering your time in the AmeriCorps timekeeping system. This is somewhere that you'll go in weekly and enter your hours that you've done for that week. You'll divide it out into categories. They'll all be there for you. And I'll walk you through this and give you an in-depth training on this, but I want you to be familiar with this idea, that this is where we're tracking how many hours, so that when you reach your 300 hours or your 450 hours, we can then say, you're done, do your exit interview, no matter whether it's before the end of the school year or after, you do your exit interview, and then I can help you to access that scholarship money that's available at the end of your term of service, okay? Again, don't get too caught up in this. I'm going to train you in it a little bit better, but I want you to be familiar with the icons, the Encore icon at the top. The survivor link is in there as well, but this is also our brand, our specific brand that the Office of Gender-Based Violence has actually trademarked for our AmeriCorps program. All right, so when you go to apply to AmeriCorps, I need you to really focus on this first start item. There are two separate processes for applying. You have to apply 2 different places and complete the application process in 2 different places. Both have to be done so that you can start counting your hours and can receive your money. So you will get a little bit of a living stipend each semester, and you'll also get that scholarship money awarded at the end of your term of service. I can't do those things, all of those things for you, if we don't get through the hiring processes completely, all right? The first thing is the AmeriCorps process. You'll go into the AmeriCorps portal. I'm going to send you out the link after we're done with this meeting. I'll send you out the link, I'll send you out the PowerPoint, and I'll send you out the forms you're going to need. You'll go into the AmeriCorps portal, you'll create a profile. So this is where you're kind of saying, hi, here's who I am, and I'm interested in being an AmeriCorps member, okay? Then once that posting is ready, which it isn't right now for fall, then I'm going to send you an email with the link that says it's time to apply. Here's what you're applying for. You'll go back in your portal, you'll complete that application. Once I get your application, I offer you the position, and I let you know by email I've offered you the position. Then you go back in and you accept the position. Then you're onboarded with AmeriCorps. What that means is that your service start can start September 1st, and that you will be able to get your scholarship money at the end. You then also, and we can be doing this at the same time, parts of it here, parts there at the same time, you also have to be hired by ASU. That's because ASU is who cuts your stipend check, okay? I cannot give you your stipend money if you don't do the ASU hiring process. So let me be clear. You can go in and do the AmeriCorps, you'll still get your scholarship, but if you don't finish all of the ASU process, you won't get the cash stipend. And that's okay. Some people might say, I already work for ASU, I want to do the AmeriCorps piece. Wonderful, you can do that. But if you want the money, you got to do the ASU hiring. So there's going to be, this is not ready yet, but it will be very soon. And I will email you. You will go to the ASU student employment page. I'll give you the code of the job you're going to apply to. You will apply for it just like you would any other job online. Where you fill out the application, you upload your resume. Okay? Then I get that. Then I look it over. I offer you a job. You need to do your I-9 tax forms just like any other job. You also will then need to turn in your DP or turn in a copy of your DPS fingerprint clearance card. So this is another reason why this makes this helpful to have. You turn that in, you do your I-9, I accept the job, you go in there, or I offer you the job, you go in again into ASU portal and accept the job. So there's several steps for both of these processes. Apply, right? Then I make an offer, you accept the offer, all right? But there's steps along the way that need to be done. Hopefully I've created enough anxiety around that you'll pay attention to that there's two processes. Now, to alleviate some of that anxiety, what I'll say to you is I keep a spreadsheet of every single person that's even said they're interested. That's why I had you fill out that Google form. I know who's turned in what piece of paper. I know if you filled out your application. I know if you've submitted your fingerprints. I know if you've done this process. I will stay on you to the extent that I feel like you need my help. Once I stop hearing from you or I've emailed you twice and no response or no movement, I'll then consider you like they're not that interested and I'll back off. And at some point I'll remove you from the interest list. But I'll usually let you know, hey, if I don't hear from you by Friday, I'm taking you off the list, okay? Fair enough? This is why it's super important to be on your email until you're all the way done as frequently as you can, okay? If I have a different email address for you than the one you check every day or the one you prefer, you need to let me know that when I email out your information. I'm going to use what you put on your Google form, your Google interview form, to communicate with you unless you tell me otherwise, all right? I am a chronic emailer. I love email. I love it for a couple reasons. One, I don't have to worry about whether you're awake or not. I'm not waking you up. You can check your email when you're ready, right? I also then can search and to find out if I did tell you something and I forgot. And it's also documented whether or not you've replied to me. So email is my preferred way. So just so you know, people who get through this quick and easy generally respond pretty easily on email, okay? All right. It's a lot. We're not quite done, but I'm going to stop here and say, based on what we've said so far, what questions might you have?
So we have a question. Does the AmeriCorps internship count as experience to apply for ASU's MSW program?
Ooh, yes, it does. Really great question. Yes, it does. So are you a non-social work major thinking about the MSW program? Probably so, but I'm going to wait for the answer.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it does. Yeah. Absolutely. I asked that because if you're a BSW student, it's kind of a moot point.
Yeah.
So yes, if you're a non-social work major but thinking about going into the MSW program, your service term will absolutely count towards your application where you need to have service hours. And you're going to get paid for it. Exciting, right? Not a ton of money, but still, money is money. It's money. And a little bit of scholarship money that'll help you when you do get into the MSW program. So,
Yeah.
Any other questions thus far? It's all really complicated, right? Okay. So again, I'm an emailer. That also helps me to organize my thoughts. When I email you, I'm going to give you steps. I'm going to give you attachments and refer to those. I try to be as clear as possible. I am okay if you email me and ask me 20 different times, 20 different questions, or 20 different times with the same question because you don't get it. I'm really, really okay with that. So don't ever stop the process or give up just because it seems too confusing or you're worried about bothering me. That is literally my job. And it's literally my goal is to give away all the money we can and place as many students as we can. So I'm willing to bear with all of your frustration and your, your confusion in order to make this happen at the end of the day. Okay? I'm a social worker too.
Me too.
You too.
We're social workers.
All right. Okay, so if you think of other questions, feel free to chime in here, but I'm going to move along. So these 3 forms are what we call our pre-boarding documents. These 3 forms I'm going to send out to you as attachments. I need these back along with, and I'm going to put this in the email, but just also verbally tell you, along with a copy of your government-issued ID, so that could be your driver's license, your state ID, your passport, or if you were military ID, if you're current. I will need a copy of that. I'll need these 3 forms signed, and I will need a copy of your fingerprint clearance card if you have it. If you don't have your fingerprint clearance card yet, never fear. I am attaching instructions along with these documents for anyone who may not have their DPS level 1 fingerprint clearance card. Remember, that is something that is a cost, and it's a cost to you, unfortunately. But it is something that's yours. It's good for 8 years. You're going to need it somewhere down the road, I guarantee you, for a job. I needed it for this job. I needed it for my other part-time job. I've needed it all along my career. So, okay. So these 3 forms, copy of your ID, copy of your fingerprint clearance card, and I am going to hold your slot. I'm going to say, that is Raina's slot. That's Jasmine's slot. That's Annie's slot. That's Mario's slot. I am going to hold that slot once I get these things, okay? You still have those other steps that I'm going to step you through and help you to work through. And as long as you keep moving, your slot is your slot. If we stop somewhere along the way and you disappear off the face of the earth for a few weeks, or you've never finished these items, these initial items, I'm not holding your slot. I'm going to keep recruiting to fill that slot, okay? So, also, don't forget the class. You need to look at your course schedule too. Okay. Let's see. That's it. Whew, that's a lot, right? A lot.
You want to do stop sharing?
You are going to get to remember an email from me before the end of today with the attachments and instructions, okay? That's an opportunity for you to correct your email address if you want something else. Like say if over the summer you don't use your ASU email address, totally fine. Just let me know, hey, use my Yahoo, use my Gmail, whatever, for the summer. And then you can fix it again once school starts back up if you want. I promise I won't harass you. I've literally only called students if I'm desperate and, oops, something happened. So email is how you're going to hear from me mostly.
So we have a quick clarification question.
Mm-hmm.
What would count as 6 elective credits to acquire the domestic violence certificate? And they ask, is it just absolutely anything related to DV?
So, okay, that's a really good question, and it's what I'm going to give you a very non-committal answer. I'll tell you why after I answer the question. So, they do need to be 2 elective courses that are related to domestic violence or gender-based violence. You will be almost automatic if they are in the School of Social Work. We offer usually in the spring, though, we offer in the spring several courses that meet that requirement. Now, that being said, we like to be elitist, but we also like to be fair. So there are plenty of great courses in criminology. There are great courses in women's studies, in psychology that are related to these topics. And you will be able to put that in. I'll answer your question in just a second, Kalia. You will be able to then, when you apply, you're also kind of petitioning for us to consider those courses. You need to attach the syllabus and the course description so that when I review that, I can make a fair determination about whether or not that would meet our criteria. I'm not the end all be all. I'm the first line. So you're sending it to academic services, who's then sending it on to me. I'm the first line, and I'll be like, looks good, but then I have to take it up to the committee. Okay. I might look at something and be like, no way, this isn't. And we can still have a dialogue, but I'm the first line, just so you know that. So I could say yes to something and someone else be like, Virginia, get out of here. You're not doing that, so.
Okay, so they also asked about, is it true for the online as well?
So, Kalia, you're an online student, is that correct? You're online social work?
Oh, here, let me unmute.
Oh, okay.
I was getting.
Oh, we were getting feedback.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so when I
Nice
started,
feeling.
I didn't know that I wanted to do social work,
Yeah?
but now I do, and it's too late to change my major. So I'm trying to get everything that I need to apply to the MSW program,
Gotcha.
and I'm like really interested in this, but I don't know, like I've looked at the online course offerings for social work so many times, and there's just not very many. So like, how do you get
Right. So you're considering the online program, is that right?
Yeah.
Not just that it was an online course, but you're in the online program. So unfortunately, I'm going to break your heart and tell you that the certificate doesn't apply to the online program.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's for on-ground students. My understanding is that there are no academic certificates available to the online students at this time. So it doesn't mean it's not going to change, but I know that doesn't help you if it changes in 2 years from now. But yeah, unfortunately, and I did advocate, again, I'm just the cog in the wheel here. My advocating was like, oh, good, that's nice, Virginia, no. So, but you still can take the In Her Shoes training, which we can help to pay for, since you can't take the SWG 545 class. You can take the domestic violence training through the coalition. We'll pay for it, and you can get the victim advocate certificate.
Okay, that would be awesome.
Okay. All right, good. That's a good question, though. Thank you. That comes up quite a bit. Anyone else? Good. Thank you all so much. Please feel free to reach out to me with questions, clarification points, whatever you need. Otherwise, you'll be hearing from me by the end of today with the attachments that you're going to need, and get them back to me as soon as you can. That'll hold your spot, okay? And also start looking at those internship opportunities, because you want to be kind of at the forefront of getting a hold of places before they fill up. Especially some of them are like considered hot commodities. You want to make sure you get in there and before they fill, and then they're like, sorry, we've already taken 2 interns, we're not taking any more. So, all right? Good. Thank you all so much. We'll talk soon.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.